But it looks like Cathy Engelbert is done after this year. That's what ESPN is reporting. This brand new article from Alyssa Philippou has dropped this morning. And this is very interesting. So, right here, in the darkest days of the past 12 months, full of public vitriol and contentious labor negotiation, Cathy Engelbert leaned on teachings.
Cathy Engelbert took over as WNBA Commissioner in the summer of 2019, stepping into a league that had spent decades fighting for basic visibility.
It sounds like she's done. Which, prior to the CBA being done, there was reports out there that the only reason that she hadn't been let go was because they were too far into CBA negotiations. Even at the time that Collier called them out, there was like, no, they're going to let her see the CBA negotiations through, and then after that, she was probably going to get shown the door.
She arrived after more than 3 decades at Deloitte, the last 4 years as its chief executive, and NBA Commissioner Adam Silver, who she would report to, called her a world-class business leader capable of driving revenue and growth. At the time, the WNBA was operating on thin margins. Franchises were worth a few $1 million. National broadcast windows were limited. The infrastructure behind the league bore little resemblance to what exists today.
And it is wild. On top of everything else, it is wild how she has ignored Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark would be everywhere on everything. And if I was Cathy Engelbert, I'd be somewhere talking about Caitlin Clark every day. Every day. By the way, there's already old WNBA fans that are scared a straight white male is going to get this job. Let the league burn. I mean, seriously.
By nearly every financial measure, the growth under Engelbert's tenure has been dramatic. Expansion fees that stood at $50 million when the Golden State Valkyries joined the league in 2023 climbed to $250 million for the franchises awarded to Cleveland, Detroit, and Philadelphia. Toronto and Portland paid on their own escalating scale on the way into the league. Average franchise valuations have risen into the hundreds of millions, with the Valkyries alone estimated between $500 million and $1 billion depending on the source. A new media rights package worth roughly $2.2 billion over 11 years and later expanded further with additional broadcast partners replaced a far smaller previous deal.
That should not be a priority. Any of that. Get the most qualified and right person for the job. If that's a straight white male, suck it. Put them in the job. Get over it. If that's the best person for the job, get over it.
On paper, this is a business transformation that would be celebrated in almost any other industry. But the growth in valuation has not been matched by stability in the league's relationship with its players, its officials, or its most visible star. Tension had already been building before this season. During collective bargaining negotiations, Minnesota Lynx forward Napheesa Collier used her exit interview to deliver one of the sharpest public rebukes a commissioner has faced from within her own league. She said the WNBA had the best players in the world and the best fans in the world, but right now had the worst leadership in the world. Other players and coaches, including Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark, publicly backed her characterization. Around the same period, a Sports Business Journal report suggested Engelbert was likely to exit after the new collective bargaining agreement was finalized. The league called that report categorically false, and Engelbert herself dismissed the idea as clickbait, telling reporters she has never been a quitter and has no plans to step away from the job. That defense became harder to sustain as the season progressed. On June 24th, during a game between the Phoenix Mercury and the Indiana Fever in Indianapolis, Mercury forward Alyssa Thomas made contact with her fist to Caitlin Clark's throat during a scramble for position. No foul was called in real time. The following day, after the league reviewed the play, officials upgraded it to a flagrant foul 2 and suspended Thomas for 1 game, along with a fine. According to Sports Business Journal, Engelbert had not initially planned to issue a suspension at all. The same reporting indicated that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver encouraged her to hand down the 1-game penalty. Thomas later described the contact as a complete accident, and both Clark and her coach, Stephanie White, publicly condemned the death threats and online abuse. Thomas said she and her family received in the aftermath. The incident escalated well beyond the court. 11 members of the House Republican Study Committee, led by Texas Congressman August Pfluger, sent a letter to Engelbert demanding what they called accountability for what they described as a pattern of physical hostility directed at Clark, citing hip checks, an eye poke earlier in the season, and the contact to the throat. The letter described Clark as the face of the league and argued that as commissioner, Engelbert had an obligation to ensure players compete in a safe and professional environment. It also raised concerns, without providing supporting evidence, that some of the physical incidents targeting Clark could be racially motivated. The Indiana Fever organization issued a statement distancing itself from the letter, saying neither the team nor Clark had any contact with the congressional group and had been unaware of it before its release. Congress set a deadline of July 24th for a response. Thomas, for her part, said she had not heard directly from Engelbert in the days following her suspension, despite the threats she said she and her family were receiving. It was only after Thomas spoke publicly about the silence that the league issued an official statement, with Engelbert saying the WNBA vehemently condemns all forms of hate and that the safety of everyone in its community remains the top priority. Reports later indicated Engelbert had in fact texted Thomas privately before the public criticism began and had directed WNBA security to coordinate with the Mercury organization, details that were not mentioned publicly when the backlash was at its peak. Engelbert also drew criticism over her handling of the media during this stretch. She had agreed to appear on Dan Patrick's national radio show to address the growing controversy, then withdrew from the interview shortly before it was set to happen. Former ESPN anchor Jamali Hill said publicly that when Engelbert used gender as cover while facing difficult questions, it came across as small, adding that as commissioner she is supposed to set the tone for the league and that weak statements were not going to be enough. The clearest public expression of the frustration came at the Commissioner's Cup championship game at Barclays Center. The New York Liberty defeated the defending champion Las Vegas Aces 93-85 to win the tournament for the second time since it began in 2021. When Engelbert stepped onto the court afterward to present the trophy, the crowd began booing the moment she reached the microphone and continued until she left the stage. Her remarks were largely inaudible over the noise. It was not an isolated moment. Engelbert had also been booed months earlier while presenting the championship trophy after the 2025 WNBA Finals in Phoenix, where at least one fan in the crowd was seen making an obscene gesture in her direction while she spoke. Two of the league's marquee celebratory moments in less than a year had turned, at least in part, into public referendums on her leadership. Jeff Hunt, a crisis and reputation management specialist who has previously worked with organizations including Major League Baseball and the PGA Tour, told ESPN that the hole Engelbert has dug has gotten so deep that it is difficult to say what her role even looks like at this point. Hunt has since said publicly that he believes the path forward for the league should begin with a change in leadership at the top, whether through Engelbert's resignation or her removal. Against that backdrop, ESPN's Alyssa Thomas reported that conversations with more than 20 stakeholders across the WNBA, including team owners, front office executives, players, and other industry figures, pointed to a general belief that 2026 will be Engelbert's final season as commissioner. Philippou's sources credited her with real business growth over her tenure, while questioning whether she remains the right person to lead the league through the demands it currently faces. Several sources expressed surprise that Engelbert had not prioritized building a closer relationship with Clark, given her position as the league's most marketable player. One team executive told Philippou that with everything that has happened this season, it has often felt like people were left asking where she was. Engelbert's contract is reported to expire after the 2026 season, which lines up with the timeline stakeholders described to Philippou. In her own comments to ESPN, Engelbert continued to deflect direct questions about her future, saying she remains focused on executing what she called a highly successful 30th season for the league, that she loves the WNBA, and that the growth of the business will continue. She asked people not to worry about her and pointed instead to what she described as the team the league has built. Whether that team continues under her leadership beyond this season remains genuinely unresolved. Reporting so far has not identified a clear frontrunner to succeed her. Hunt himself said finding a successor will not be easy, describing the search as requiring someone who can serve as a bridge builder with a broad vision for where the brand can go and how to capture the popularity the league has built. Whoever eventually takes on the role, if a change does happen, will inherit a league defined by a genuine contradiction. The financial numbers, the media deals, the expansion fees, and the franchise valuations tell the story of a business that has grown faster than almost anyone could have predicted 7 years ago. The relationship between the league office and the players, officials, and fans navigating that growth tells a very different story. one still being written as the 2026 season moves toward its final stretch.